Ivy Chase. Tilda. You're lying, I hissed through gritted teeth as I pulled the blanket closer to my body. There's no way I'll ever sleep with you. Parker leaned against the dresser with a mischievous grin plastered across his face. His eyes sparkled with mockery and he folded his arms. Oh sweetheart, you didn't just sleep with me, you practically begged for it. You're a disgusting liar, I spat at him, not wanting to believe what he was saying. It's not possible. It can't be possible. Parker laughed, a cold, mocking laughter. I'm not even sure if you're pretending that you don't remember or you actually don't remember. I honestly couldn't remember any events from the previous night. My memory was scrambled and my head hurt as I tried to recall everything that happened. Even if it was difficult to remember, I was certain that I couldn't have slept with Parker. If I did, it meant I cheated on my boyfriend with his biggest rival. And that would be really bad. I hope it was just a misunderstanding. Maybe he just happened to be in the wrong room. There was no way I would have followed Parker into a hotel room. He was the one man my boyfriend, Sebastian, couldn't stand. I mean, after all the bad things my boyfriend had told me about him, I couldn't stand Parker either. Nothing made sense. I wouldn't even have a conversation with him on a normal day. I think you're lying. I have no idea why you did this, but it isn't funny. I added, my voice cracking slightly. Sebastian would be devastated if he even knew I was in the same room with Parker. Parker let out a soft chuckle. Call me anything you want, Ivy. But it doesn't change the fact that you were in my bed. And you weren't exactly shy about it. I don't believe you. I barked at him. I had no idea what had happened or how I even got to the hotel room. I was trying to process everything and trying hard to remember. You want me to jog your memory a little bit? He asked, leaning closer. I tightened my grip on the blanket and shifted away from him. You remember walking up to me at the party? With your friend. I honestly have no idea if she was your friend or not. My throat immediately went dry as I swallowed. As I began to remember the events from the previous night, I knew that there was a chance that Parker was telling the truth. I had an argument with my boyfriend the previous day and decided to attend the party just to spite him. We had both been invited to a work event, but he was out of the country for a business trip. He asked me not to attend since he wasn't going to be present. But I was too stubborn to listen to him. I called my friend, Zara, and asked her to accompany me. Zara was always prepared for such adventures, so she agreed immediately. I could only remember the argument and my arrival at the party, but I couldn't remember anything else. I couldn't remember speaking to Parker or any other man. I didn't go to the party with the intention of meeting someone else. I went there to enjoy myself and have fun. Was I drunk? I couldn't help but ask because that would be the only logical explanation as to why I ended up in a hotel room with him. And where is my friend, Zara? Parker shrugged his shoulders. How am I meant to know? Stop asking me all these questions. He replied. I was guessing that he was running out of patience. We had a good time and that is all that matters. I couldn't hold back a scoff. How am I sure you're even telling the truth? You just did all these to frame me. I didn't have sex with you. I added, my voice filled with uncertainty. I was still in denial and didn't want to believe that I had sex with someone else. Especially if that someone else was Parker. It would break Sebastian. Maybe it was a dream. A nightmare. I started pinching myself. I needed to wake up from this horrible dream. I didn't want to cheat on my boyfriend. Not even in my dream. Parker sighed, running his fingers through his hair. Why are you whining about it like a baby? He asked, raising a brow at me. Do you think I'll go that far just to frame you? Why would I even want to frame you? I don't know. Maybe because you and Sebastian are enemies and you want to get back at him or something. I replied, my tone defensive. Parker smacked his lips. You cheated on your boyfriend and there's nothing you can do about it. You can deny it all you want, but it won't change the fact that it happened. My heart skipped a bit. What if I actually cheated on him? Maybe I had too many drinks. I should have listened to my boyfriend and stayed back at home. My eyes glistened with tears and I didn't even know what to do. Please, don't tell anybody about it. I want to be the one to tell him about it myself. I pleaded, my eyes mirroring my desperation. After much back and forth, Parker finally raised his hands in surrender. Fine, I won't say anything, he added, his expression unreadable. I let out a deep sigh, trying to calm myself down. Thank you, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Then, Parker responded with an uninterested nod. I didn't trust him but could only hope he was being honest. I asked him for some privacy while I got dressed and grabbed all my belongings that I could find. Before he could come out of the bathroom, I fled the hotel room. Ivy Chase. Tilda. I stood in front of the mirror and looked at my reflection. I picked up the hairbrush from the vanity and brushed my long brown hair. After that, I packed it into a sleek ponytail. With everything that had been going on, I hadn't gotten the chance to visit the salon. But I had to do my hair by myself because I was having dinner with Sebastian and needed to look presentable. The thought of the dinner sent a shiver down my spine. He still had no idea what happened the previous night. After I left his house because of his annoying secretary, he texted me to apologize. I didn't want to continue living with the guilt of cheating on him, so I asked him to let me know when he would be free. I wanted us to talk. He suggested that we have dinner at a fancy restaurant. I wanted it to be in private, but I reluctantly agreed. I mean, Sebastian wasn't a fan of crowded places, so I guessed it would be kind of empty. I took a deep breath as I smoothed out my dress. Then I forced a smile as I stared into the mirror. Even if I felt miserable on the inside, I looked good physically. After grabbing my purse, I headed outside my apartment. The Uber I ordered had already arrived and was waiting for me. I texted Sebastian to let him know that I was on my way to the restaurant. In a short span of 10 minutes, I arrived at my destination. As I stepped into the restaurant, I noticed that there weren't so many people around. My eyes darted around the place as I tried to find my boyfriend. I let out a relieved sigh when I saw him sitting at the end of the restaurant. He gestured for me to walk towards him when our eyes locked onto each other. But I froze in my steps and my heart skipped a bit when I saw Parker sitting on the table beside Sebastian. Oh my goodness, I whispered to myself through gritted teeth. This is so fucked up. I didn't want Sebastian to think something was wrong. So I took a deep breath and steadied my nerves. Then I walked carefully over to his table. I made sure to avoid looking at Parker, even though I could feel his eyes on my body as I walked. What was he doing at the restaurant? Was it a coincidence or was he trying to play games with me? I couldn't help but wonder if he had said anything to Sebastian. I was even surprised to see that they hadn't caused a scene yet. Hey! I managed to smile as I sat down beside Sebastian. He kissed me on my forehead. Hey! My heart was pounding in my chest but I tried my best to stay calm. I felt so uncomfortable with Parker present in the restaurant. I prayed silently that he would leave before Sebastian would notice anything. It wouldn't be nice if I told him about it in Parker's presence. A fight would likely break out and it wouldn't look good for any of us. Why did Parker have to be at the same restaurant we were having dinner? What did you want to talk about? Sebastian asked, raising a brow at me. You sounded like it was so urgent and important. Is every good? Or do I have to be worried? Before I could respond, a waiter interrupted us as he asked what we wanted to order. Letting out a deep breath, I picked up the menu and glanced through it. We'll have pasta and roasted chicken, Sebastian responded before I was even done looking through the menu. I dropped the menu on the table and smiled at the waiter. Yes, and a bottle of Jim Beam, please, I added. Sebastian looked at me in shock as I requested for alcohol. Are you sure you want that? He asked and I nodded. I needed to take a glass of drink to prepare myself for the conversation we were about to have. As Sebastian spoke to the waiter, I turned around to look at Parker who had a mischievous smirk plastered across his face. Just as he was about to wink at me, I quickly turned around and reached out for Sebastian's hands. I had no idea what was going to happen after he found out the truth. I wasn't even sure if he would forgive me. But I needed to say something. It would only be worse if I kept it a secret because the truth would eventually reveal itself one way or another. Are you good? Sebastian asked me and I nodded. Why is he here? I asked Sebastian as I pointed to Parker's table. Sebastian always had a lot to say about Parker, but he hadn't even acknowledged his presence since I walked inside. Sebastian shrugged. Don't worry about it. Tell me what you came here for, he demanded, his voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated for a few seconds, unsure if it was appropriate to talk about it with Parker present. I wasn't prepared for Sebastian's next question. What happened last night? His expression became sharp and he asked like he already knew something. My lips parted and I blinked. What? I asked, my voice tinged with shock. Sebastian sighed heavily. What happened last night? I repeated the question. I was at a loss for words. My eyes darted between him and Parker. Parker just watched quietly as we argued. Did he already say something to Sebastian? I had no idea what was going on and I didn't know what to say to Sebastian. What do you think happened last night? I asked, trying to figure out how much he knew. Why are you turning the question around? I asked you first. He replied, glaring at me. Where were you at last night? I was getting uncomfortable and couldn't answer his question on the spot. Please, I just don't want to talk about it here. Sebastian scoffed. It was you who asked for a conversation. And suddenly, you don't want to talk? He snorted. Maybe you shouldn't have dragged me here in the first place. I stood up from the chair and walked outside the restaurant because Sebastian was about to cause a scene. He trailed behind me and called out my name as I walked through the front door. What is wrong with you, Ivy? You can't answer a simple question? I stood in a corner because the weather was getting bad and it was about to rain. My eyes were glistened with tears and I took a deep breath to prevent myself from breaking down in front of him. Sebastian stood in front of me. Would it kill you to tell what happened last night? He asked, his voice rising in anger. Are you hiding something from me? I opened my mouth to speak but I couldn't form any words. I wasn't in the right state of mind to have the conversation with him anymore. Can you take me home? We will talk about it in the morning. I ignored his question and pleaded. Sebastian let out a loud chuckle. You were the one who asked to have a conversation. We aren't leaving until you tell me what you want to talk about. I rolled my eyes and couldn't hold back a scoff. So you won't drive me home? I asked, my voice slightly cracked. Sebastian clenched his jaw. Exactly. Then he turned around and walked into the restaurant, leaving me standing there in the rain. Ivy Chase. Tilda. Tears rolled down my eyes as I walked in the cold rain. I was frustrated and angry because Sebastian didn't even care to come after me. It was dark and rain pounded against my skin as I walked through the streets of New York. A part of me was scared and I increased my pace in order to get back home quickly. My heart raced with every step I took. It wasn't safe for me to be outside all by myself. Just as I turned around to the corner of a street, the sound of a car horn echoed through the air. I hesitated for a moment, wondering if I should turn around. Maybe, just maybe, Sebastian had finally come to his senses and was chasing after me. I turned slowly and let out a disappointed scoff as I realized that it wasn't Sebastian's car. Just as I was about to continue walking, I heard a familiar voice. Hop in the car, it's not safe to walk alone in the dark. Parker's voice pierced through the quiet air. I stood still as he gestured for me to get into his car. I rolled my eyes and continued walking. Parker didn't give up. He slowed the car to my pace and kept on trying to get my attention even though I pretended like I wasn't seeing him. I couldn't get into his car. He was the main reason I found myself in an uncomfortable situation with my boyfriend. I mean, I couldn't completely blame him because I had no idea how we even got into the same room. But I knew it wouldn't be a good idea to get into his car. No, thank you. I politely declined his offer when I realized he wasn't giving up anytime soon. I'm good, I can walk back home by myself. When he saw I wasn't willing to listen to him, he parked the car and got outside. Then he walked up to me and stopped me in my tracks. Ivy, please just get into the car. He pleaded, his voice laced with concern. You don't have to speak to me but I can't leave you here. It's raining and it's dark. He was right. I was already drenched and almost shivering. Maybe getting into his car wouldn't hurt. Besides, he would drop me off soon and I wouldn't get to see him anymore. He led me to his car and handed me a clean towel from the back seat. I dried off my clothes and settled down on the passenger's seat. What were you doing at the restaurant? I demanded as he settled down beside me. It seems like you were enjoying what was happening between me and my boyfriend. Parker laughed. It was entertaining to watch, but I wasn't enjoying it, he responded as he started the car engine and drove into the street. I rolled my eyes. Yeah, right, I replied, running my fingers through my wet hair. Did you say anything to Sebastian? I asked, raising a suspicious brow at him. Parker hesitated for a while, then he let out a deep sigh. Did he tell you that I said something to him? He asked, instead of giving me an answer. I don't know what kind of sick games the both of you are playing with me, I replied, frustration evident in my voice. Sebastian was eager to know what happened last night, like he already had an idea of what I had done. Plus, I didn't think it was a coincidence that Parker happened to be at the same restaurant we were having dinner. It was also unusual for Sebastian to ignore Parker's presence at the restaurant. I mean, for someone who had a lot of bad things to say about Parker, he acted unbothered by his presence. Parker let out a soft chuckle as he pinched the bridge of his nose. Why do you think I would play sick games with you? He asked, his eyes focused on the road. I let out a disbelieving scoff. Are you seriously asking me that? Like I said earlier, you are probably trying to revenge Sebastian or something, so you chose to mess with me instead. Parker laughed. Since when are we enemies? He asked, his eyes darting between me and the road. I blinked, clearly taken aback by his question. Excuse me? You act like I've done something unspeakable to you. He glanced at me. Remind me. What exactly did I do to you? I opened my mouth to speak, but couldn't form any words. My mind scrambled for an answer, but I couldn't think of anything. After a few seconds, I cleared my throat and replied. What do you mean? Don't we hate each other? Don't you hate my boyfriend? I asked, staring at him. You realize we were actually good friends before you got into a relationship with Sebastian, right? Parker asked, smacking his lips. Parker was right. After I got together with Sebastian, I sort of shut out most of my friends. It wasn't something I was proud of, but it happened. I remained silent. We used to be cool, but all of a sudden, you started acting like I was the worst person on earth, Parker continued, his voice tight. I'm curious to know, Ivy. Tell me what I did to you. I looked outside the window, trying to think of something. But nothing came to my mind. I had no real crime to pin on him. I couldn't say I hated him because of anything he did to me. I just assumed he was a horrible person because of all the stories Sebastian had been telling me. The realization made me feel like I was a shitty person. There was an uncomfortable silence for a few minutes. I had no idea what to say to Parker. I was feeling ashamed because I didn't have an answer to his question. I found out what happened last night, Parker said, breaking the silence and changing the topic of conversation. What happened last night? I asked, looking at him in anticipation. Someone set you up, and I caught the guy who was originally sent to your room. Do you want to meet him? My eyes grew wide in shock as I tried to process what I had just heard. Who? Huh? Wah, who? I stuttered as I tried to form a coherent sentence. Ivy Chase. Tilde. Someone set me up. My voice was barely above a whisper. Why would anyone do that to me? I asked, still trying to wrap my head around everything. Parker nodded. Yes, someone set you up. He responded like he was so certain. I couldn't hold back a scoff. Set me up. I wasn't sure if I should believe him or not. I couldn't bring myself to trust him. What if I was just a pawn in a silly game he was playing? First of all, I woke up in the same room with him without any knowledge of how I got there. And now, he is saying that someone set me up. He was being ridiculous. When he saw how hesitant I looked, he cleared his throat and continued. I'm being honest here, I found the guy who was originally sent to your room. What are you even talking about? I asked, my brows furrowed slightly. I was beginning to feel overwhelmed because too many things were happening at the same time. There were too many questions, with barely any answers. I didn't even know what to believe. Parker exhaled slowly, bracing himself up. Don't you want to meet the guy? He asked, pressing further. Everything was frustrating because I still had no idea what happened the previous night. I already had too much going on and didn't want to complicate it any further. As much as I was curious to know what happened, I still couldn't bring myself to trust Parker. I wasn't interested in seeing any guy. I shook my head firmly. No, I don't want to meet anybody, I replied, my voice laced with certainty. My mind was already overflowing with doubts, and adding more questions would make me lose my mind. I needed to talk to my boyfriend first before I could even think of anything else. Parker's expression faltered for a few seconds. Why? Don't you want answers? Don't you want to know what happened? I rolled my eyes. The only thing I want to do right now is go back to my boyfriend's house and tell him about what happened last night. Parker's expression was unreadable. Are you sure, Ivy? You are okay living without knowing the truth? He asked with a confused expression registered on his face. Yes. Yes. Parker exclaimed, his eyes wide with shock. Nothing he said was making any sense. If I was being set up, how did I end up having sex with him? Who would even want to set me up? I couldn't take it anymore. Please stop the car. I requested, my voice calm but firm. I didn't want to go with him anymore. Parker didn't protest against it. He just stopped the car and looked at me. You don't trust me? You think I'm not being honest with you? He asked with a hint of disappointment in his voice. I looked away and clutched my bag tightly. We are enemies, remember? I replied, but the words didn't come out as firm as I wanted. Parker let out a defeated sigh. Fine. He raised his hands in surrender. I'll wait until you order a ride. I can't leave you without knowing you are safe. Okay. I booked a ride to Sebastian's house and waited in uncomfortable silence as I waited for the ride to arrive. My mind raced with different thoughts about what Parker had just told me. But I didn't want to think too much about it. I had bigger things to worry about. After a few more minutes, my ride finally arrived. I let out a relieved sigh as the cab pulled up in front of Parker's car. Thank you. My voice was barely above a whisper as I opened the door and stepped out of the car. I walked over to the cab and settled down in the back seat. I noticed that Parker waited for my cab to drive off before driving away. My heart was pounding in my chest. I just wanted to be over with everything. I had been miserable all day because I had been keeping such a terrible secret. I couldn't run from it forever. I needed to talk to him about it as soon as possible. Even if Sebastian had been weird earlier, I still owed him the truth. He also deserved an apology. Maybe, just maybe, he would be able to forgive me. What I did was terrible and being drunk wasn't an excuse. I just hoped that he would be able to understand. Even if I was scared of the outcome, I was ready to tell him everything. Then he would be the one to decide if he would still want me around. I wouldn't blame him if he decided to leave me. What I did was very disrespectful and terrible. I also felt so terrible. If only I could go back in time, I wouldn't have attended the party. The worst part was that I couldn't even remember anything from the night. Shortly after, I arrived at my boyfriend's house. He had no idea I was even going to his house. I wasn't even sure if he had returned home or not. I helped myself into his house and made my way upstairs. I searched for him at the bar and the dining room, but I couldn't find him. So I decided to go upstairs to his room. As I ascended the stairs, I started developing cold feet. A part of me wanted to turn around and go back to my apartment. I knew I was brave about it a few minutes ago, but I was scared of his reaction. Different scenarios had replayed in my head and I wasn't sure I was ready for them. What if he doesn't forgive me? Maybe I should just leave and deal with it later. But I shook my head. No, Ivy, you've already delayed the truth for so long. You have to tell him now, I whispered to myself as I tried to make the right decision. I forced myself to continue walking. I had to tell him, even if it destroys us. When I reached the door, I took deep breaths to calm myself down. I reached for the doorknob, but before I could even turn it, something caught my attention. My chest rose and fell with labored breathing. I recognized those shoes by the side of the door. I helped my best friend pick them out the last time we went shopping together. Ivy Chase. Tilda. I couldn't breathe properly anymore. It felt like the world was spinning. I hoped it wasn't what I was suspecting. No, it couldn't be. Zara wouldn't do something like that to me. Maybe it was just a coincidence. I had no idea how to explain, but I knew it was a coincidence. Taking a deep, calm breath, I pushed open the door quietly. The lights were on and I wasn't prepared for the next thing my eyes saw. Sebastian and Zara were having sex. They were having sex on the same bed I usually have sex with my boyfriend. They were so engrossed that they didn't even notice that someone had opened the door. It felt like a knife twisted in my chest, but I didn't move. My heart shattered into a tiny million pieces. I just stood there, frozen, unable to even speak or move. I just watched them while my boyfriend moved in and out of her as she let out breathless moans. Their bodies tangled in the sheets so effortlessly, like this wasn't their first time. Like it was normal for them. After a while, I couldn't look at them anymore. I forced myself to ignore the lump that had formed in my throat. I turned around and walked out quietly. It felt like I was dreaming. My best friend and my boyfriend were having sex? Everything felt so surreal. I still couldn't believe it. There was no possible explanation to justify why Zara was even at his house in the first place. It didn't make any sense. Why would she do something like that to me? Anger coursed through me, but I tried my best to stay calm. I wanted to walk back inside and scream at them, but I just couldn't. I was still in denial. Life had a way of surprising people. I came to tell him about how I accidentally cheated on him, but I found him cheating on me. I couldn't even confront him because I was just as horrible as him. But I was still confused about why he chose to cheat on me with my best friend. Why would she even agree to sleep with him? Did he already find out about what I had done last night and decided to take revenge on me? Even if he wanted to, couldn't he choose any other girl? Why did he have to be Zara? And why did Zara even agree? I kept trying to understand. I didn't even know what else to do. Maybe I deserved it. I wasn't innocent after all. I had betrayed Sebastian. It was my karma. But what did I do to Zara? I thought so hard but couldn't think of anything. I knew we didn't have a perfect friendship. But our relationship was going great. We hadn't even had any argument in a while. Why would she betray me like that? They were hurting me badly. And the worst part was that they were doing it with full knowledge of what they were doing. Even if it was an act of revenge, it was very low. I felt so devastated, disrespected, disappointed, and betrayed. I didn't need to confront them. I had been trying to fix my relationship, but it felt like I was just wasting my time. This was the height of it all. There was no going back. Being betrayed by my boyfriend was one thing. But being betrayed by my best friend and boyfriend was something else. I couldn't stand there anymore. As I took one last glance at the shoe beside the door, the memories of that day we had gone shopping replayed in my head. Zara and I were so happy and everything was perfect between us. I never imagined that it would turn into something like this. Did I offend her at any point? Tears were already threatening to fall from my eyes as I thought about everything. I wiped off my eyes with the back of my hands and turned around. Just as I was about to walk down the stairs, I heard Sebastian's voice coming from the room. Are you sure someone sent Ivy into the room? I stopped in my tracks as I heard him ask. Sure, 100%, Zara responded, her voice filled with certainty. But I asked her about it today and she doesn't look like someone who was raped, Sebastian replied with a hint of confusion in his voice. The blood in my veins turned ice cold. What did I just hear? Zara sighed. I'm sure she was raped. She repeated firmly. Maybe she's just so good at hiding it. Her response sent a shiver down my spine. She was acting a little bit weird and looked guilty, Sebastian replied. Or maybe she actually enjoyed it, Zara giggled. I thought I would collapse right there. What the fuck were they talking about? I was meant to be raped? Someone was meant to be sent into a room to rape me? It was then it clicked. My mind wandered back to Parker and his words replayed in my head. Someone set you up, and I caught the guy who was originally sent to your room. Do you want to meet him? He was trying to tell me something but I wasn't willing to listen to him. I thought he was just trying to play games with me, but I was wrong. Parker was trying to tell him what had happened last night. But how did Sebastian and Zara find out about it? My stomach churned as I thought about it. At this point, I couldn't even focus on the fact that I just walked into my boyfriend and best friend having sex. All I could think about was how someone tried to set me up. My chest tightened and I felt hurt emotionally, physically, and mentally. Everything was really fucked up. Who would do something like that to me? Ivy Chase. Tilda. Sitting in the bar waiting for him, I felt lost, wondering how my life ended up like this. I wished it was just a dream. I couldn't even use sleep to escape from my problems even if I tried. I ended up waking back to reality and my chest still hurt as though I was stabbed physically with a knife. Sebastian always told me that he loved me. He always assured me that we would be together forever. He made it seem like he was madly in love with me. But everything was a lie. I had been tricked for so many years. Nobody would do something like that to the person who they loved. It wasn't logical. For years, Sebastian had been my world. He was the center of my life and I had built everything around him. I had given him every piece of me without hesitation. I stood by him. I sacrificed for him. More than I wanted to admit. More than I had ever let myself acknowledge. His dreams had become my dreams. When he wanted to start up his company, I was there. I contributed all the savings I had. Just because I believed in him. Just because I believed in us. I thought we were a team. I thought that if he succeeded, it meant that we were succeeding together. I was all in and I thought he felt the same. I stood by his side, every step of the way. I had been there through his late nights, through every frustration, through every loss. I had been the one to motivate him even when he wanted to give up. I did a lot. I made sure he ate well. I made sure he slept well. I had listened to all his rants about being frustrated with work. I was there to always assure him. To always remind him of why he started in the first place. As I thought about everything, I didn't even realize that tears had been flowing down my cheeks. Everything was so messed up and I was still in awe. We had been through so much together and I didn't expect it to turn out like this. I even had to walk away from friendships and cut ties with people who were like family, just because Sebastian didn't like them. Just because Sebastian felt like they were against him. I forced myself to believe him. I forced myself to think that they didn't support my boyfriend, so there was no use in having them around. I thought Sebastian was enough for me. Like, I had him, so I didn't need a bunch of other people in my life. Little did I know that it was one of the wrong decisions that I made in my life. I had done so much for him. And yet, he still went ahead to betray me. I watched him and I wasn't sure what memory would leave my head anytime soon. He didn't betray me with a stranger. He didn't betray me with a random girl from his club. He chose to betray me with my best friend. I couldn't help but wonder why. Why did Zara also choose to betray me? She was the one person who I wasn't scared to be vulnerable around. She had seen every part of me. I was open with her about almost everything. She had listened to me talk about Sebastian countless times. She had watched me blush and giggle while I talked about how much I loved him. She knew about almost everything that was happening in our relationship. Shit, she always talked about how she loved what we had and couldn't wait to experience it with her own person. I felt like I couldn't breathe. None of it made sense. How could they do something like this to me? I closed my eyes tightly as the scene replayed in my head. I didn't see any sign of guilt or hesitation. It was purely pleasure. But maybe I was just misunderstanding everything. There had to be some sort of explanation. Maybe he had heard what happened at the hotel. Someone might have snitched and he was heartbroken and angry. Maybe he wasn't sober and wasn't thinking straight. He was hurting and wanted revenge on me. He wanted me to hurt like he was hurting. So he decided to sleep with my best friend. I swallowed hard. I needed to give him a chance to explain. There was an explanation that would make everything seem more logical.